Alrighty folks, want to welcome you back for another video from Yates Computers Tips and Reviews. For this one, I thought about it a couple weeks ago and came up with, you know what, maybe people don't know how to do a backup on their system without having to buy any other kind of software out there. And actually this is something I've been implementing around in different places, that now that everybody's going to solid state drives and other things and upgrading their drives, computers, having their old drives left over, you have all these extra drives. So basically I've been putting a secondary drive in, setting up the backup feature through Windows itself, letting it back up to that other drive, so you don't have to physically worry about, oh man, did I do my backup this week? Did I do it last week? Did I do it last month? You actually have that. Not to mention, it's kind of a redundancy. Now you have two backups. So in case something truly happens to your computer, that you have those files. Basically, when you do a USB backup and you're backing up your data, most of it's going to be your data that you want backed up. It's not going to be your operating system configurations. It's not going to be all those type of things. This backup, you can actually do that. You can actually create a restore point type of a backup, where in case something truly goes wrong with your system, you can actually restore from that backup and get back up and running faster. Plus, if you're doing your other backup, depending on how you're doing it, you might be just backing up your photos and your personal information, because reinstalling Windows, reinstalling your software that you already have isn't really that difficult, but it's really convenient if you already have all these things already. And it's not really that difficult. Not to mention, maybe you want to use this backup instead of just copying your files and your personal things and your user files. So I wanted to go through this on how to do a backup. So basically, if you hit the Windows and the S, you come up with the search screen. You just type in backup, it'll come up with backup settings. In here, there's other things you can add: backup history files, to which drive. This is the feature I've been using. In here, you can actually do backups. Let me put in a USB drive. It should work on the USB. It'll identify it. D drive, blah blah blah, backup options. Admin password. Change your backup settings, yes. So I wanted everybody to see this steps. And you see where it prompted me for my admin password. This is really one of the security features you want. I know it's kind of annoying, but here's the thing. Do you actually want to be changing your settings? So this is really where you're safe, knowing that nobody can go in here and mess with your settings or change your settings, because there's a specific password to get to that point. So in case your system gets compromised, breached, whatever, you have those options. Basically, you choose your drive you want to back up to. Click next. It'll let you say, let Windows choose. You can say, let Windows choose. It'll say all users. It'll go through. It'll basically format your drive or whatever and start performing a backup. So this is really convenient, because now you have this backup feature. On here, you can actually specify, if you go into changing the options, that you can actually go through and specify what you want backed up. Maybe you don't want all users backed up. If you have multiple users, this is really a nice feature, because now you can back up all your users' information in one shot. Maybe you're doing your personal backups, but maybe your spouse, your kids, or someone else is using that same computer or laptop. Maybe they're doing schoolwork, doing other things on there that they might need later. Maybe you're in college and you're doing your essays, you're doing all your, I don't know what they're called, all your big reports, all those type of things that you got to do for your classes. Maybe it's something that takes you a few months to do. Well, you don't want to lose that information. So this is really a nice feature to have, because maybe you have multiple kids on the computer doing their schoolwork, and you might have a chance that someone, one of the two, one of the five, whatever it is, gets infected, causes an issue, deletes something they shouldn't. Again, that's why you have your admin password, so that doesn't happen. But sometimes files get corrupted. This is how you do your backup. So I wanted to do this video and explain some of these things, because I went through backups and the importance of backups. There's videos making sure that they're in two independent places. So again, I mentioned I have 2 drives in one computer. That doesn't mean we're not doing any other backups to that system. This is just so that they have that extra backup just in case, because you never really know what's going to happen. Having 2 backups is a lot better than not having a backup. Having 2 backups is better than having 1 backup. Having 3 backups, of course, is better than having 2, because you never know what happened. Maybe you have those backups in a secure fire safe in another building like you're supposed to have, not on premise. Because if you have a fire or a major event that takes place where you have your primary system, and you're following best practice, that is the best practice. But what happens if something happens to that facility where you have those backups stored? So that's kind of the catch-22 that I've run into, that I've heard of, that sometimes the event happens where you have your backups. So sometimes it's convenient to have that backup. Maybe there's some really critical information that you really want to make sure you have backed up. And if it's nowadays, it's not that expensive to buy a drive, a cable, power splitter if you need it, or even a splitter for your ATI. Nowadays you get motherboards that have ATI and M.2s, multiple M.2s, that you can do the same feature on. So, not that I'm recommending you go out and buy a solid state SATA drive or having dual M.2s just for a backup. Of course, nowadays I've mentioned you can do overkill. You can do a lot more than you actually need to. But I'm not saying you can't. I'm telling you, you actually can. Because if you can go out and buy, an M.2 for $100, and you get 2 of them, put them in there on your motherboard, and you're done, that's not a bad deal. You have your redundancy on there. In case one of those drives fail, you have the backup. So that's one of the things. Other than doing RAID, you have RAID options also. You may be running a RAID option. That might be one of these options why you would want to do this. Maybe you're running a RAID 5 already. Well, you can put another drive in and do a backup of the RAID 5, where you have it all on one drive. So in case 2 or 3 drives fail because you bought them all at the same time, or God forbid all 5 fail because it's a drive manufacturer fault, error, you can at least have a backup. And what's it going to cost you? One cable, one drive, one M.2. You might have M.2 drives and be running RAID 5 on SATA drives or on a server, or even some servers have SD cards that you can put in. SD cards, of course, after so many writes, are no good. You're going to have to change them out. But it is an option that's there that a lot of people don't look at. So this is one of those options I wanted to point out, is a simple backup. That's all there is really to it. But I wanted to go through and let everybody see truly what's involved. So that's all that's involved. Basically, it has to run through the process. Maybe I'll pause it here, wait till it gets to the end, and I'll go in and show you some of the other settings. Let me go ahead and pause recording now. Alrighty, folks. I think I'll just wrap this video up because this is going to take a while. I don't really need the backup to be done, but I wanted to show you how this is done. Wanted to show you the different. There's other things you can do. You can do restore points, you can do system images, but the factor with restore points that I've been finding is if you go look at my videos about Windows update errors, restore points might be some of that factor. Is people using restore points and then your computer OS gets outdated because you keep going back to an old version of Windows 10 that then ends up being out of life. So that's one factor I wanted to bring up that also will come into apply with backups, is you don't want to let your backups get too old, because if you do, all of those updates you're going to have to reapply, and you might end up being end of life and having to do a USB and upgrading. Watch those videos on that. I have a screen capture and I have a basic video on that. So I think I'm going to wrap this one up. It's gone on for about 12 minutes with enough information here I think everybody can figure out. If you want to go in and personalize it, you can go in and change it. If you go down to change settings, you can modify your space and tell it how much space you want to use. Maybe you have a drive you want to add information to. I wouldn't recommend it, but let it use the full drive. So that way you can have 3 or 4 backups depending on the size drive. Maybe you have 2 backups, maybe only 1 backup. But to have those multiple backups with the different, if you say every month, then you have 2 months, or every week, you have 2 weeks or 3 weeks of backups. So that you might not necessarily catch something was deleted that first week, where you might have to go back 2 or 3 weeks to pull that certain file that is missing. So I wanted to sum that up also on here, because there's these little features. Of course, it's all up to you on what you want to do, but if you're doing your other backup that's an independent backup that you keep away from your computer, then you also have that point of a backup too. So for that, I can just close this out. It'll let me go up there, close that out, and you have your backup settings. So I wanted to go through that. You know, there's recovery options you can do. That is Windows default basically, but your backup is really important. You want to be doing a backup. Go to where, and you can see it's still running. So I wanted to show that, elaborate on that, because I spoke about it, but I didn't really show anybody and didn't really elaborate about the backup. So let me wrap this one up. Thank everybody for watching another video from Yates Computers Tips and Reviews. Of course, this is the screen capture of how to do a backup. This is actually the full backup. You can go in, you can customize, you can tweak these settings. You can go in and look at them and play with them and see what you might want, not want. Specific files, specific users, certain times, certain date, whatever you want to do. Alrighty, I'm going to wrap this one up, and thank you for watching. Make sure you hit the subscribe. Let everybody know I'm out there. Forward these links out. Let everybody you know I'm out there. Thank you so much.